stand by.
Hello and welcome to the morning programming live on NTN for today, Monday, the 16th of November, 2020. We'd like to thank you so much for tuning in and thank you for making us your wake-up station, coming to you from the Information Command Center at the GIS studios. Today, Monday, the 16th of November, 2020, we have stricter measures taking effect as the nation battles increasing cases of COVID-19. As recent as just yesterday, the NEMAC meeting was held on Friday to decide upon some measures to tighten and to get persons to be aware of this situation, get persons to take greater precautions in protecting themselves against COVID-19. We are coming to you with the latest developments coming from the government of St. Lucia. We have the latest COVID-19 cases, the word from the press conference following the NEMAC meeting on Friday. We will let you know what will be allowed and what is not allowed in the next 2 weeks. We also have word on the retrofitting works at the respiratory hospital, and that work is advancing, and St. Lucians in the diaspora continue to their homeland, continue to contribute to their homeland through education. The details of these stories and more are coming up on the other end of this break. My name is Jessie Leonce. I hope you stay with me for the next hour or so. Stay with us.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek en chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique là fait wolo parler en place publique qu'on bon en mai base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds Rodyon à l'autre. I ka travail tan, si ou senti ko pas cordial, quarantine ko, pas en contact et puis l'autre, en cas où te toi pe exposé. Si on est couillé, free 11 ou ben n'importe clinique yo pou. Les pays a 10 000 à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM, yo accessible avant c'était souhait. Pays à clé en plein, ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vermine corona. Si nous tous servi Jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. Say to shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the morning programming live on NTN. We're bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. Now, before we went to break, I didn't have my mask because I was just sipping on some tea. But now I have my mask. And even though, you know, the next person in studio to me is at least 12 feet away, we still want to take as much precaution as possible. And the word from NEMAC is that, you know, coming out of the NEMAC meeting, we had a press conference with the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Alan Chasney, as well as the Acting Commissioner of Police, Milton Daisy, and the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George, stating that more measures, more stringent measures need to be taken at this time because we're seeing an increase in numbers. Before we get into the details of that NEMAC meeting, we saw over the weekend a further additional cases of COVID-19 being registered. We have a total 171 cases of COVID-19 in St. Lucia. On Friday evening, I believe, we had cases 157 to 160. That's 4 cases. of COVID-19 being registered. And on Saturday, we had 2 additional persons being diagnosed with COVID-19. And just to run through cases 157 to 162, a 47-year-old male from the Labrie district. Case number 158 is a 14-year-old female from the Babonneau district. Case number 159 is a 59-year-old from the Soufrière district. Case number 160 is a 55-year-old female from the Soufrière district. And we have case number 161 registered on Saturday, an 84-year-old male from the Castries district, and case number 162, a 39-year-old female from the Dennery district. And then on Sunday, we had a further additional cases, 9 new cases of COVID-19 being registered. I now go to the latest statement from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George, on these latest cases, as well as advisories coming into Monday, 16th November.
Today, Sunday, November 15th, 2020, the Ministry of Health and Wellness receives confirmation of 9 new cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of cases diagnosed in country to date to 171. Case number 163 is a 42-year-old male from the Choiseul district. Case number 164 is a 27-year-old male from the Castries district. Case number 165 is a 38-year-old male from the Castries district. Case number 166 is a 32-year-old female from the Vieux-Fort district. Case number 167 is a 40-year-old female from the Gros-Islet district. Case number 168 is a 10-year-old female from the Gros-Islet district. Case number 169 is a 60-year-old female from the Labrie district. Case number 170 is a 26-year-old male from the Babonneau district. Case number 171 is a 39-year-old female from the Castries district. All of these individuals, following being assessed and tested for COVID-19, were placed in quarantine by the health practitioners, awaiting the receipt of their test results. 5 of these cases were identified through the contact tracing process, and epidemiological links have been established for these 5 so far. Cases number 163 and number 166 are linked to case number 109. Case number 164 is linked to case number 142. Case number 167 and 168 are linked to case number 147. As per protocol, arrangements have been made to place these individuals into care. The Ministry of Health is pleased to announce the recovery of a total of 13 cases of COVID-19 from Thursday, November 12th to today, November 15th, 2020. These 13 individuals have been released from care and reintegrated into their communities. This now brings the total number of active cases currently in country to 110. At present, one of the active cases remains in critical care at the respiratory hospital, and all of the other cases are stable. The Ministry of Health, we once again remind everyone to practice daily infection prevention and control guidelines to minimize the risk of spreading the virus. Wash and sanitize your hands often during the day. Ensure a mask is always used while in public, and ensure it covers both your mouth and your nose. Sanitize frequently touched surfaces, often using a bleach solution. Also, follow the floor markers in public spaces to maintain the recommended physical distance. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, keep away from others and seek medical care immediately at the closest respiratory clinic. Also, avoid contact with others who have flu-like symptoms. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will continue providing updates as information becomes available.
That was the latest update from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George. We are at 171 cases of COVID-19 to date in country, and she was just reading up on the 9 latest cases diagnosed on Sunday. We do have At least 13 individuals have so far been released from care and they have been reintegrated into their communities. That coming from Dr. Belmar George in the latest statement. She did indicate that a total of 13 cases of COVID-19 from Thursday, 12th November to the 15th of November, that was yesterday, have recovered. And fortunately so, we're seeing that there are a number of individuals who are recovering while we're seeing increases in cases. But the word from the authorities is that we need to have, if we're having this rate of cases, we need to have either an increase in recovery rates or a decrease in the persons contracting COVID-19 overall. And so this is where you come in. We hope that individuals are taking a closer look as to their habits, what they do as they go about their days in terms of protecting themselves and their families from contracting this virus. Due to the increase in cases of COVID-19 here on island, we saw the authorities coming together again to review some of the protocols that had been implemented at the start of this month. And certainly they had to be stricter measures. There had to be stricter measures being put in place because the initial measures just weren't working. We heard reports from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force that persons were still congregating at certain spots, at certain bars in the city and certain locations. And the effort was for persons to reduce and to limit their activity, their congregating, the social gatherings as much as possible. Unfortunately, we've registered increased cases almost by the day. And so the National Emergency Management Advisory Council, NEMAC, on Friday held a consultation on these stricter measures in the national response to COVID-19. The revision of the measures comes as the island has been recording and continues to record increasing cases of the virus. And we had last week the first fatality, and the first fatalities, case 1 and case 2 of deaths, people succumbing to COVID-19 here in St. Lucia. So directly after the press conference, I just gave an update on what the authorities had to say in terms of the stricter measures that take effect today. So please take a listen to this post-press conference report. Stricter measures to take effect come Monday, 16th November 2020. That is the word from the Honorable Prime Minister during the just concluded press conference to update the nation on the COVID-19 response. We have the authorities, the Honorable Prime Minister, and also the Acting Commissioner of Police included, that they have determined that the protocols implemented 2 weeks ago, they are not working. We had 56 new cases registered in the last 14 days. The first fatalities recorded here in St. Lucia, that is 2 individuals succumbing to COVID-19. And 1 patient, we heard from the CMO, Dr. Sharon Belmar George, is now in critical care. The Chief Medical Officer did indicate that based on the rate of transmission, cases could triple in a fortnight if there isn't across-the-board compliance. And coming out of today's NEMAC meeting, that is the National Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting, the Prime Minister did announce the amended protocols aimed at further limiting unnecessary social interaction here in St. Lucia.
Work from home where possible. Again, our intention is to work with the private sector and also the public sector to cause those persons who do not need to go to work and that they can work from home, that they do so. And we're imploring the cooperation of all businesses to review their current operation practices and where possible, cause people to stay home. Business operating hours will remain at 9 o'clock at night, with the exception of bars.
Protocols have also been tightened. We have further limitations on gatherings.
All bars will be closed from 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Those bars/grocery stores in the communities can continue to offer liquor on a grab-and-go basis. But all places that only are bars will be asked to cease operations at 4 o'clock, and up until 4 o'clock, they're only allowed to practice grab-and-go. Persons are not to purchase liquor at these premises and consume them on the premises. or to have any form of social gathering on those premises.
Alcohol sales protocols for food establishments and bars have also been amended.
We're reducing church services back to 25 people. The funerals afterwards would be limited to 25 people. We're asking for the suspension of all weddings, ceremonies, asking for the suspension of all social activities, including sports. Anything that would cause persons to come together, we're asking that to be suspended. So even in terms of your own home, to stop from inviting your own family members for the next 2 weeks over to your home. So we would like to see a complete suspension of any form of social gatherings.
A prohibition on all activities, gyms included, will also take effect. As mentioned earlier, we also had the Acting Commissioner of Police, Mr. Milton Daisy, on hand, and he did indicate that there has been a vast improvement on the mandatory mask laws, especially in the capital. However, they continue to contend with the illicit border entry, having arrested individuals just recently.
Also, we saw the continuation of persons coming in through illegal means, and that so much so that last week we took in at least four individuals who had entered the island through the back door, as we say.
The amended protocols, which will take effect on Monday, 16th November 2020, will be reviewed by the authorities in a week's time. From the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. Advisory Council meeting where stakeholders, civil society, the religious community, all these individuals were consulted before coming to a decision as to where do we go from here. We've instituted as a country specific measures at the start of this month to guide and to reduce cases and transmission as much as possible. And unfortunately, we have so far seen a continued increase in cases in the last 2 weeks. And so the officials did convene and they decided upon the following measures, as some of which you heard in that report there. But just to go over it, the first thing that the Prime Minister indicated in the press conference was the work from home where possible to reduce contact meetings. So please continue, that's the advisory from the Office of the Prime Minister, please continue to observe all COVID-19 safety protocols as you go about your daily life. Keep your hands sanitized, wear a mask when you're out in public, practice social distancing, eat healthier, and stay home if you are sick. But working from home where possible. The Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chasney, did indicate that they cannot ask employers to institute. They cannot force the hand of employers to institute work from home policy. But it is strongly advised that employers take into consideration that employees interact and convey the sentiment to employers that where they see possible to implement work from home as much as possible. Implement work from home. The second thing is business operations and commercial activities must end by 9 p.m. So business operations, commercial activities, everything must end by 9 p.m. And that is, again, an effort to get people to go home as early as possible. As soon as you're done with your workday, commercial activity, also giving the individuals who operate such businesses to get home as soon as possible and to reduce unnecessary interactions going into the evening and to also discourage. We know the night we have so many social activities and what have you, and that is aimed at reducing interactions, unnecessary social interactions. Mass gatherings at this point in time and social activities are strictly prohibited. No provisions will be made for the celebration of any kind of any birthdays, weddings, retirements, funeral receptions, wakes, boat rides, beach picnics, etc. These things are strictly prohibited at this time. We're seeing the clusters in cluster community cases. Community cluster cases, and the effort right now is to reduce interaction with people. Keep it down to your family. So mass gatherings and social activities are strictly prohibited. Also, limitations of all social gatherings, including church, that has also been instituted, and restrictions on alcohol sales. Consumption of alcohol on the premises of any bar or restaurant or gas station or supermarket is not allowed. Standalone bars must close by 4 p.m. So if you don't have a little shop by your bar, if you don't have, you have these community shops and bars, you know, together. But if you don't have a shop, your bar must close by 4 p.m. And you're not supposed to be accommodating any kind of social activity at your bar. It's a grab and go policy which stays in effect for bars until 4 p.m. No gathering outside of the bars. Either strict measures of enforcement will be taken and consumption prohibited at bars. So you're not supposed to drink at bars. You're not supposed to celebrate, socialize, congregate, crowd, grab what you get in and go. And the same applies for gas stations and supermarkets. However, these gas stations and supermarkets will remain open until 9 p.m. As opposed to just the bars closing at 4 p.m. And alcohol sales, restaurants and food vendors. As I mentioned earlier, the gas stations, the supermarkets, restaurants and food vendors, that's all food establishments, can sell alcohol until 9 p.m. via the grab and go or takeaway services. All food and drinks are required to be served to go. So you can't go into an establishment and expect to be accommodated and expect your family to be sat down at a table for you to dine. No dining is allowed at any restaurant or any food establishment. In fact, no gathering at any food establishment or any vendor or any food truck. None of that is allowed right now. You grab your meals, you grab your drinks, and you head home as soon as possible. So no dining experiences are permitted. And finally, prohibition of all sporting activity, and that is gyms included. All team and competitive sporting activities inclusive of indoor and outdoor trainings, competitions, gym workouts, or social activities are prohibited for the given time period. And provisions apply for individual or immediate family households to exercise in a safe, open air space. These activities may include running or walking, cycling, home gyms, yoga, etc. So you can remain active at home, but the advice and the protocol that has been instituted at this time is that all sporting activity, including non-contact sports and gyms as well, is now prohibited. And these measures have been taken. You know, I think the resounding message throughout the NEMAC meeting and the subsequent press conference was that individuals are to limit any sort of social interaction. It is unnecessary at this time, especially as we're seeing these cluster cases emerging island-wide. The effort of the Ministry of Health is to try to contain COVID-19 as soon as possible. We're seeing strides are being made where health is concerned. Individuals are recovering. We've so far, unfortunately, had 2 individuals succumbing, but far more individuals are recovering from COVID-19. And the effort to clamp down on the rate of transmission is high right now. And so these measures have been put in place to reduce people going up and down unnecessarily. Again, school remains closed. We are advising that, you institute the work from home policies as much as possible, wherever possible, in order to reduce the commute and people in workplaces coming from various locations island-wide as much as possible. When we come back, we're due for a break. When we come back, we'll be taking a look at the status of the respiratory hospital. We know that construction there has been ongoing in an effort to ensure that they have the full capacity to take on the number of cases that have been projected. Stay with us.
With all that's happening around us, simple adjustments are necessary to keep us all safe. When calling 911, we may need a little more information to deploy the right personnel and protocols. You may be asked about your travel history, signs and symptoms, contact and movement history, and whether others in your household are exhibiting similar symptoms. Please Be patient and cooperative during this time to ensure you receive the best possible care while keeping our first responders safe.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue from the segment that we were last on, talking about the cases that we've so far registered. 171, 13 recoveries so far here in St. Lucia. 2 fatalities. We had our first fatality registered last week, and unfortunately so. But the effort now is to see how we can reduce the transmission here on island as much as possible. We've had 9 cases registered on Sunday alone, 2 cases on a Saturday, and 4 cases, I believe, on a Friday. The effort is to ensure that we can reduce on these cases as much as possible. We continue with this morning's programming to let you in on the retrofitting works at the respiratory hospital. That effort is advancing as health officials move to accommodate the rising number of COVID-19 patients. We have more in this report.
In March 2020, in anticipation of the COVID-19 pandemic and community spread, the government of St. Lucia proactively moved the operations of the 133-year-old Victoria Hospital to the OKEU Hospital. The government's team of engineers then got to work transforming these buildings into the island's full-fledged respiratory hospital.
We quickly retrofitted to just meet the needs at the time. But as time went by, we looked at our different sources of financing, where we had the Disaster Vulnerability Reduction Project. There's a component under this project where you could activate in the event of any emergency, and the pandemic was actually an emergency.
The World Bank provided $5.8 million EC dollars for the further expansion and the transformation of the wards to specifically accommodate the possible influx of COVID-19 patients. This included the increase in the numbers of beds and improvements to the ventilation, electrical, and central cooling systems.
What we've done in these areas is we've removed the walls, some internal walls, and a lot of stuff that was in there during the normal use when they were using it as VH, and we've put in individual rooms and the bathrooms for each of these rooms, and we've put in staff bases in all of these areas with new walls, new floors, new ceilings, as well as putting an extraction system with UV to help kill the virus as that air is being extracted, and we've put in AC units.
Now in all of the wards, we have a door vent installed on all the doors. We also have a viewing panel, which the nurses can view the patients from the corridor instead of entering the room to see how the patients are doing. And the bathroom is on this side. It has a shower, a face basin, and a toilet. That same concept runs through all the rooms in that area.
Due to the age of the Victoria Hospital, the contractors faced several unexpected delays and structural challenges.
The biggest challenge for me and our construction team has been the procurement of materials. We had to order stuff in, and it took us months to come in.
Here is the pediatric ward. In here we have 12 rooms. This first room here is a nurse's quarters, and the others are wards for patients. As the other rooms, each room has an extractor fan coming down in the room. All the doors as well have their door grills installed. The AC units are all what we're missing within this area to be installed to balance the air pressure in this area.
Lovely amount of water in the entrance, as you can see that. This is a health hazard. Anybody can slip and fall at night. If the light is turned off and I have to walk through, I can easily slip and fall and hurt myself. I'm a COVID patient.
There is an acute danger to scaremongering, which may inevitably lead to trepidations of patients presenting themselves for treatment at the respiratory facility.
What has been mentioned, a lot of it is warranted, but a little exaggerated. The areas where we saw the rains, that was due to, some issues that were experienced in the roof.
At the time of the exponential increase in the numbers, we had to make do with the space that we had at the time, and which really does not reflect what really the real rehabilitation which took place in the hospital. So basically, we had to make do with the different space areas that we had.
This facility is scheduled to be complete within the next week and will accommodate 100 patients. From the Government Information Service, Lisa Joseph reporting.
In that report, you could see that there's definite, effort. Work is assiduously ongoing to ensure that we can have this hospital prepared and ready for any eventuality. We continue with this morning's developments, bringing you the developments from the government of St. Lucia with the news of the Embassy of Taiwan continuing to lend its support, And every couple of days we can see that the Embassy of Taiwan, lends a helping hand to the government and people of St. Lucia. And we're definitely very grateful for that. It continues to lend support to St. Lucia's national fight against the pandemic, more specifically with another PPE, that's personal protective equipment donation. We have Huma Demak covering that story. Take a look.
The government of Taiwan has facilitated the donation of 30,000 face masks to help in the fight against COVID-19. The honorary president of the Taiwanese Chamber of Commerce of North America, Gerald Wong, donated the face masks. The donation will aid in the protection of frontline workers and citizens of St. Lucia. Addressing the handing over ceremony, the Taiwanese ambassador, His Excellency Peter Chen, says joint efforts will continue in the fight against COVID-19.
We will continue to work together to combat COVID-19 and promote mutually beneficial exchanges between Taiwan, St. Lucia, and the United States. Just last week, I was proud to join Minister for Commerce, Bradley Felix, and Ambassador Teddy Latela to launch several events for the first ever St. Lucia-Taiwan Business Partnership Week. Our goal is to promote St. Lucia's advantage and encourage more trade, investment, and tourism. I hope business leaders in Taiwan and the U.S. will learn more about St. Lucia and become as captivated by it as I have.
The U.S. ambassador to the Eastern Caribbean, Her Excellency Linda Tagliatella, expresses her elation with the donation. She says that it reinforces the deep bond of affection amongst the U.S., Taiwan, and St. Lucia. Her Excellency Tagliatella says the coronavirus knows no boundary and reiterates that wearing a mask can stop the virus and save lives. President Gerald Wong, speaking on his donation, expresses the importance of global collaboration in health efforts and pandemic prevention. He says that not only can Taiwan help in the global efforts, but is also helping through such donations. Minister of Health and Wellness, Honorable Senator Mary Isaac, who was also present at the handing over ceremony, took the opportunity to thank contributors for the timely donation.
This is coming at a very critical time, because without your support in terms of providing us with those PPEs, we would not have been able to assist our frontline workers and other people of St. Lucia that we are providing with these masks and these other PPEs that you have provided for us.
Meanwhile, Minister for External Affairs, Honorable Sarah Flood Bobre, expresses thanks to Taiwan for their continued support and calls for Taiwan's inclusion into the World Health Assembly.
Clearly, we have seen Taiwan's own efforts in combating this epidemic. Taiwan has been a great leader for the world in terms of how to successfully deal with this epidemic. And not just to fulfill the mantra that we've set ourselves in the SDGs of no one left behind. The whole world will stand to benefit if Taiwan is included around the table.
The World Health Assembly is the body which determines policies of the World Health Organization. The assembly is held annually in Geneva, Switzerland. From the Government Information Service, Huma Demak reporting.
That report there coming from the Embassy of Taiwan, the donation that they have so far made, yet another one coming to the people, the government and people of St. Lucia. We have another donation report, this time coming from a St. Lucian in the diaspora, a very generous donation at that, the details of which coming up after this break. But in the meantime, we have the heightened awareness of COVID-19 here in St. Lucia that I must remind you about. Stricter measures have been put in place after the initial measures put in place at the start of October were not working, and so the authorities have instituted work from home where possible. They're asking employers to institute work from home where possible. Business operations and commercial activities must end by 9 p.m. Mass gatherings and social activities are strictly prohibited, so no birthdays, weddings, no wakes, no funeral receptions, none of that sort. Limitations on social gatherings, including church. All daily church and religious services are limited to 25 individuals within the church compound. Please take note. Strict restrictions on alcohol sales. Consumption of alcohol on premises is not allowed. Standalone bars must close at 4 p.m. The grab-and-go policy remains in effect until 4 p.m. So that's for the entire time that the bar is open. It is a grab-and-go situation. The grab-and-go policy stays in effect. No gathering outside of bars. Either strict measures and enforcement will be taken by law enforcement. Alcohol sales at restaurants and with food vendors, all food establishments, gas stations, supermarkets, restaurants, and food vendors can sell alcohol until 9 p.m. However, still under the grab-and-go policy, no consumption is allowed, and all food and drinks are required to be served to go. So there will be no dine-in experiences, and there is a prohibition on all sporting activity. Before there was just a prohibition on contact sports, but now it's a prohibition on all sporting activity, gyms included. And this is until St. Lucia can begin to get, a hold of over the COVID-19 situation. This update coming after the NEMAC meeting held on Friday. That was announced by the Prime Minister during a press conference, and it takes effect today, the 16th of November, 2020. Please ensure that you play your part. The effort right now is to try to reduce the cases, reduce the risk of transmission by limiting social unnecessary interactions with people at this time. There will be a review to these protocols, these edited protocols, in a week or so, as indicated by the Chief Medical Officer, and NEMAC will meet again to determine how these protocols have worked so far as they try to put in stricter measures to hope for compliance on the part of the general public. So please comply. Now more than ever, we need to do our part. These cluster cases happening in the communities is very concerning, and we need everyone to play their part to reduce the risk of transmission. More news coming up right after this break.
Keeping hands clean is important for good health. However, after a disaster, staying clean is hard to do, especially if there is no pipe-borne water. Simple things you can do to stay clean and remain healthy are: wash your hands with soap and clean water. If these are not available, sanitizers with alcohol are options. Wash your hands many times during the day, before preparing food, eating, caring for a sick person or baby, treating a cut, wound, or sore. Wash hands after using the bathroom, changing diapers, caring for animals, caring for sick or injured persons, after handling garbage. Washing your hands is one of the best ways to prevent illness. For further information, contact the Bureau of Health Education at telephone number 468-5349.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. We continue with news. A quantity of microscopes has been donated to the Ministry of Education, Innovation, Gender Relations, and Sustainable Development. This is one of the latest charitable gestures by St. Lucians living in the diaspora. We have more news in this report. Take a look. 25 compound microscopes were presented to education officials this week. A St. Lucian living in the diaspora is the benefactor of this generous donation. Nelville Alphonse is resident in the United Kingdom with a background in the medical field. Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs, Her Excellency Dr. Jocelyn Fletcher, commends the single-handed effort of Alphonse.
This is the microscope, one of the microscopes that Nelvin Alphonse has donated to the Ministry of Education. Now, as Mr. Matra said, it is very costly. One individual, and he is just one of the many we have, who are not members of associations, but they're individuals in the diaspora, sending many things. And we have a lot of groups and associations that come together and send things as a whole. But we have individuals who, on their own, gather supplies and donate them to St. Lucia. And Mr. Nelvin Alphonse from the United Kingdom is one such person in our diaspora.
Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Innovation and Gender Relations, Michelle Charles, informed that secondary school students will be the ones benefiting from this donation.
We definitely have to thank Mr. Nelvin Alphonse for this contribution. It is not just the ordinary contribution, but one which is targeted at one of our interventions at the Ministry of Education. We definitely know that this will have a profound impact on our STEAM areas, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And so we are going to put this device, this piece of equipment, to good use. I understand that these are compound microscopes, and they are going to be utilized within our secondary school science programs.
Natural Sciences Curriculum Officer in the Department of Education believes the inclusion of the equipment in its science programs will spark greater interest in these subject areas.
Science is a big priority for the Department of Education. And as such, a lot of resources is being placed into STEM education. And when we have persons from the diaspora like Mr. Nelvin Alphonse, who demonstrate his nationalism and how patriotic he is by making such a great contribution, you have to admire this. And we say a special thank you to him and other persons like him who would make their contribution in such a valuable way.
The donation was channeled through the collaborative efforts of the Diaspora Affairs Unit and the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, SSDF. Alison Mathra is the SSDF's executive director.
We know already that our children are challenged with math and science in the math and sciences area. And of course, we are challenged by, financial constraints. And so this presentation is very meaningful. I want to take this opportunity to reach out to the diaspora, whether it's through the associations of St. Lucians living overseas or through individuals. We welcome everything that you can send to us that we can pass on to the people in need.
Immediately following the microscope's presentation, a barrel of school supplies donated by the Caribbean American Heritage Foundation of Texas was handed over to the SSDF for its Our Boys Matter program. The government of St. Lucia has engaged its diaspora as development partners, exploring human and social synergies beyond remittance transfers. Ambassador Dr. Fletcher is pleased with the response so far. From the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. A quantity of microscopes going to the Ministry of Education, and now the Zook's Untitled sponsor, IndieBet, has handed over a check of US $10,000 over to the Ministry of Education as well. This amount was pledged by IndieBet and will go towards providing laptops for underprivileged children of St. Lucia who are unable to go to school due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the 2020 Caribbean Premier League, Due to CPL, IndieBet agreed to provide US $100 for every boundary scored by the St. Lucia Zooks, US $150 for every 6 hits by the Zooks, and US $200 for every wicket taken by the St. Lucia Zooks. IndieBet further agreed to top up the contribution to US $10,000. Sue Morplaisy is the representative for the St. Lucia Zooks and IndieBet.
This is specifically to go towards students in need that are suffering somewhat from this pandemic. We'd like to say to the Ministry of Education that we are behind their backs and We are supporting them. IndieBet is pleased to be on board, and certainly they look forward to the success of those students.
It gives me great pleasure to express our most profound thanks to Zooks and Lucia Zooks and IndieBet for their generous donation of US $10,000. That gift will come in very handy, especially since it is intended for students who are economically challenged. Given that now we've had to transition to online learning, we know that that will go a long way to lend the necessary assistance to those most in need. It is good to know that we have benevolent partners like you, and I'm even more compelled to lend my full support to what you do, not only in terms of sports, but for the broader social development of our people. So thank you very much on behalf of the ministry and the beautiful children of this nation. Thank you.
That report, that clip there from the St. Lucia Zooks and IndieBet making a donation of US $10,000 to the Ministry of Education to go towards laptops for underprivileged children in St. Lucia. We know the kids are learning from home right now. There's remote learning, and it's very important that they have their devices. Do stay with us. When we come back, we'll bring you some bulletin information and also go over the measures, the revised measures, the protocols as we respond to COVID-19 here in St. Lucia. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Jim Joseph, president of the Beausejour Community Group. We believe St. Lucia can win the war against the coronavirus, and here's how. Every community in St. Lucia must mobilize, coordinate, monitor, and support residents the way we would before, during, and after a natural disaster. Identify volunteers in your community, assign them roles, and deploy them. Ensure your elderly and vulnerable understand all protocols. Help relatives, shield them from unnecessary contact with others. Identify those recently unemployed and vulnerable neighbors living alone. Put systems in place to filter updates from official sources throughout your community. Promote the hotline number 311. If it takes a village to raise a child, then all of us can come together to defend the village against the coronavirus. Let's do it.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. We're now down to our final segment of the morning programming. Some bulletin information. The Blood Bank Department of the Ezra Long Laboratory informs the public of a blood drive at the Babonneau Multipurpose Center. And donors are asked to have a proper breakfast and take any required medication before coming to donate blood. COVID-19 protocols will be in full effect. Donors are asked to wear their masks. The hands of persons will be sanitized with alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Also, temperature checks will also be undertaken before the process begins. So if you want some more information, you can contact the Ezra Long Laboratory to find out how you can how you can give blood at this time. The Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment wishes to notify all clients of the Public Assistance Program, PAP, of Babonneau, Gros-Islet, Castries and Soucy Millet regions that payment for the month of October will commence from Monday 16th November to Friday 20th November 2020 at the Castries City Hall from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily. So please take note of that. The Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment wishes to notify all clients of the Public Assistance Program of Babonneau, Castries, Gros-Islet and Soucy Millet regions that payment for the month of October will commence from Monday 16th November to Friday 20th November 2020 at the Castries City Hall from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily. So that's the bulletin information coming from the government of St. Lucia. We want to remind you of the revised protocols, more stringent protocols, stringent measures taken, because the ones that have been instituted just earlier have proved to not be working, as we're seeing an increase in cases. So the Government of St. Lucia, the Prime Minister is advising that employers institute work from home where possible and reduce contact meetings. Also, business operations and commercial activities must end by 9 p.m. Mass gatherings and social activities are strictly prohibited. So no weddings, no funeral receptions, no wakes, no birthday parties, none of that. Limitations of all social gatherings, including church. All daily church and religious services are limited to 25 individuals within the church compound. Special religious rites and services, including christenings, weddings, funerals, will be limited to 25 individuals, inclusive of observers and the service leaders. So that is where religious activities in the church are, where that is concerned. But social activities after that, that's the wakes, the wedding receptions, the birthday parties, that is not allowed. That is prohibited right now. Restrictions on alcohol sales, consumption of alcohol on the premises, on any premises is not allowed right now. Standalone bars must close by 4 p.m. and up until that time, they must institute the grab and go policy. And this will be enforced by the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Strict measures. These strict measures also include that there's no gathering outside the bars either. Alcohol sales at restaurants and food vendors, all food establishments, gas stations, supermarkets, restaurants, and food vendors can sell alcohol until 9 p.m., but it will be via the grab and go or takeaway services. All food and drinks are required to be served to go. There will be strictly no dine-in experiences for patrons. And finally, prohibition of all sporting activity. Prior to this, it was non-contact sports only that were allowed. So contact sports were prohibited. At this point in time, prohibition of all sporting activity, gyms included, are not permitted at this time. Again, it is the effort of the authorities to ensure that we can clamp down on COVID-19, to limit social activity, to limit unnecessary interaction among people, unnecessary congregating of people at this time. And I know we so far have seen, the first fatalities associated to COVID-19. And, St. Lucia was once at that enviable spot of not having, any fatalities, and at this point in time, a lot of measures have to be tightened to ensure that we can begin to contain COVID-19 again. We're seeing an increase in cases. The effort is on, and we hope that members of the population, myself included, everyone here at the GIS, all of the ministries, from the highest office of the Prime Minister and the Governor General, right down, that these measures are adhered to as much as possible in order to reduce the risk of transmission of COVID-19. We have quite a few cases, and I don't think the CMO is satisfied with the recovery rate to contraction rate at this time. We need to get a hold on things, so please play your part. We go back to the basics: use of the mask, washing of hands with soap and water as much as possible, and where you cannot, use hand sanitizer. Observe the 6-foot distance if you find yourself among a group of people. Ensure that you play your part. And we want to commend those who have been doing that so far. We did hear from the commissioner, the acting commissioner of police, that there was a level of compliance, increased compliance to the use of the mask. Of course, it had to become mandatory, but there was a, vast improvement in the performance of the public in the use of the mask, especially in the city of Castries. But there's much more that we can do in order to reduce the risk of transmission at this time. Please play your part. A concern coming from the Royal St. Lucia Police Force also, there were arrests made recently of individuals crossing the border, coming into St. Lucia illegally. If you know of anyone who's associated with these incidents, you've heard of cases, you can let the police know. This is all in an effort to reduce the risk of transmission. There's certainly an effort to contain COVID-19 here in St. Lucia within our borders, but there's no telling who is coming into St. Lucia with what. And so we need to play our part. If you have a tip, let the officials know. And this is not just for yourself. This is for your relatives. This is for your grandmother, your grandfather. This is for your children. We need to protect ourselves from COVID-19 at this time before we get into uncontrollable phases, as has been experienced in many other countries where their health systems are collapsing. We're still fortunately at a point where our health system can contain us. We have a respiratory hospital to accommodate. We have facilities to accommodate cases right now. But we need to think of the future. We need to think of potential situations that will not be easy to get out of. We need to do the work now. We need to do the preventative work right now. Adhere to the guidelines in terms of the washing of the hands, the use of the hand sanitizer, the face mask, the 6-foot distance. Ensure that you adhere to the protocols that are instituted. Keep your ears to the ground. Listen to what is going on television, on NTN. Get your information from official sources, that you know what are the updated protocols, as I've just announced, as I've just indicated, as announced by the Prime Minister at a press conference on Friday. These things, all of these things are very important. Awareness, being conscious of what is happening around you, is a great part of clamping down on COVID-19. I leave you with these words. I do wish you a productive and enjoyable week. Many of you are already working from home. We hope it's productive just as much. And those kids who are at home as well, learning from home, we wish you a productive and enjoyable week as well. We know things are very tense. There's a lot of anxiety that is going on, but we need to be comforted by the adherence to the protocols. We need to be comforted by the fact that we have the authorities who are looking after the best interest of the population at this time, using scientific information to come to conclusions, and a heavy consultation. We just saw the NEMAC meeting where there is heavy consultation with stakeholders to come to these decisions in terms of stricter measures as we go week by week, month by month in this fight against COVID-19. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching. We hope that you could stay tuned to NTN as we continue to respond to COVID-19 as a nation. Please play your part. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Do stay tuned. Bye-bye.